Stand up and go. Your faith has saved you." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Our story this morning starts out with Naaman, the Syrian. Right? Naaman is a commander of an army. He's from a pagan nation, but he's healed in the Jordan. Right? He's contracted leprosy, which of course is kind of like not only a social death sentence, but a physical one eventually. And being a man of power, he's got a lot of resources at hand. And he's saying, I can go anywhere, I can do anything. I'm gonna find a way to get better. But he listens to what one of the little Hebrew slave girls says. Oh, there's a prophet in Israel that could heal that, right? So, being very willing, he makes the trip to Israel. He finds the prophet Elisha, right, who's the kind of receives the inheritance, if you will, of the prophet Elijah. And we've got two very similar names there. Elijah comes first, and Elisha, with an SH, comes after him. Receives a double portion of Elijah's spirit, is what he asks of God when his mentor leaves. And he's granted that. And Elisha has no problem receiving Naaman, who comes in faith and wants to be healed, and is kind of like, well, yeah, we'll pray and that'll happen. Just go wash in the Jordan 7 times. Of course, Naaman, powerful army commander of a great nation, he's got it in his head that he's going to go off on this epic journey to a land that's far away and find this strange prophet, and then he's going to do something to kind of earn his healing, right? He's a warrior on conquest for his own self. What he finds is this guy who says, now listen, anybody ever been to Israel? I know Father Raul just took a trip, okay? Do you remember the Jordan River? It is this muddy, trickly little thing that has nothing to impress, right? It has nothing on the mighty Mississippi. It's barely, it can't hold a candle to the St. John's River, okay? It's pathetic. But it's Israel's river, right? And the prophet of Israel says, go wash yourself in the Jordan River. It's muddy, right? I mean, like, it doesn't look appealing. You wouldn't want to drink it, for example. And so Naaman kind of has this reaction of like, I'm not going to wash in that. That's ridiculous. I came all this way. We've got way better rivers back home that are sacred to them, right? Could not I have just washed in one of those rivers? I come all this way and you want me to, right? But he's very willing. His friends say to him, Naaman, we came all this way. You want to get healed. What's it going to hurt to give this a shot? And so he humbles himself, and he does it. He cooperates with what God asks of him, even though it's a simple little thing. And it says his flesh is restored like that of a baby's. Right? Just perfect skin now. How often is it that we want to fix ourselves on our terms? This reminds me of another story in the gospel where there's a man who's laying by a pool in Bethsaida. He's 38 years old, has been crippled his whole life. And he's waiting by these waters that are supposed to have healing powers. And Jesus has the nerve to ask him the question, do you want to be well? Can you imagine what's going on in the head of that guy? No, I'm just laying here by the healing pool for fun. My crippled legs. But Jesus' questions are always very intentional. Do you want to be well? Of course he wants to be well. Right? But there's something else that's going on underneath all that is, are you willing to actually change, right? Because if you're healed of your whatever's wrong with your malady, then your life is going to change. Right? To whom much is given, much is expected. If you're given a clean bill of health, you're going to have to learn how to go out and work and earn your living. You won't be able to beg by the pool anymore. How bad? Okay, you want to be well. How bad do you want to be well? You want to be well. How much are you willing to change yourself to cooperate with what I want to do to make you well? Right? Naaman had it in his head that something great was going to be required of him, and that he was going to, in all his capability and all his, giftedness, was going to be able to cooperate in this magnanimous way, and he would be rewarded with healing. But God wanted to give him the gift of healing. He wanted it to be a free gift. So all he had to do to cooperate was this little simple thing. How often are we like that? How many very capable, very competent people do we have in our community? Very successful by the standards of the world? How often do we want to be the ones who are in control? Do you want to be well? And if so, are you willing to do it on his terms rather than on yours? Are you willing to surrender in order to receive that healing? How much do you really want it? In the end, Naaman is healed, and he wants to give Elisha a great big gift. And Elisha or Elisha, or however you want to say his name, says, no, there's no gifts, right? You don't get to buy this. You don't get to earn this. It's just a gift to you. And so he says, well, then give me another gift. Give me 2 loads of the earth of this holy land so I can take it back, and upon an altar that I'll build on top of the dirt of Israel, I'll offer a sacrifice to God and thanksgiving. And Elisha says, yeah, okay, you can take some dirt. But Naaman is immediately filled with this desire to offer sacrifice and thanksgiving to God. We see in the gospel the 10 lepers, right? How easily they're healed. Now we've got to remember leprosy, right? It is in the Old Testament as well as in the Gospels a sign of, it's analogous to sin. It's both deadly and contagious. And so what does leprosy do that sin also does in a less visible way, perhaps, is it makes of them exiles from their own community, right? That the lepers have to live apart. And so it's from a long way off that they're calling out to Jesus. They have to follow all these strict rules so that other people know that they're lepers. So from a long ways off, separated from the people, they're crying out to Jesus. Jesus, Master, have pity on us. What's he say to them? Go show yourselves to the priests. This was like Jesus choosing to heal through the Mosaic law. That when a leper was thinking like, maybe I'm better, maybe I can be readmitted to society again, he'd have to go to the priest, and the priest would inspect him. And if he was found fit, then he would kind of live on the edge of the camp for a week, kind of like, what do you call that? Sorry, my dad does this with the horses when he breeds horses and gets a new horse and brings them home. Quarantine, thank you. Right? I guess we do that with people too, if there's some kind of like serious epidemic contagion. So that they kind of live in quarantine on the edge of the camp, and after a week, if everything's still cool, then they're kind of fully readmitted through all these washing and purification rituals. Jesus says, go ahead, go show yourself to the priest. Notice he doesn't approach them, he doesn't touch them, he doesn't say you're healed. He just asks them for the simple thing. And while they're on their way to show themselves to the priest, they're all miraculously healed, all 10 of them. And only one, the foreigner, who is not an Israelite, is the one who comes back to prostrate himself in gratitude before the Lord. Right? That he falls on his face, right? Like the 3 wise men who came and worshiped before the infant king, the little baby Messiah Savior. Right? This one foreigner, right? He's not a Syrian, that's Naaman. He's the Samaritan. The Samaritan is the only one, and remember, there's bad blood between the Israelites and the Samaritans. But the Samaritan is the one who comes back. Perhaps because the priest wouldn't receive him anyways, I don't know. But he comes to the high priest. He's the one who recognizes who the true priest is. Right? We could say the same today, right? That leprosy, that we have this sin in our community that separates us from each other. It isolates us from one another. Right? And it's spiritually deadly to us. And when we have deadly sin, that is mortal sin, that is really big deal, serious stuff going on inside of our soul, what do we have to do in order to be reconciled not only to God but to the community? Is the sacrament of reconciliation. That we have to go and show ourselves to our one true high priest. That the Israelites that went to the ministerial priests of their time did the right thing. That's what Jesus asked them to do. Right? But just like then, today we can say with just as much certainty that as a priest, right, I'm a priest of Jesus Christ, right, that I've been changed by the sacrament of holy orders that God gave me, by the laying on the hands of the successors of the apostles and our bishop. But I only minister in his power and his authority, right? That Benjamin doesn't have any power behind it. But Father Benjamin, there's an authority that comes with that from the Lord. Right? That when we go and we show ourselves to the priest and our sinfulness and the thing that is deadly and contagious to me and to my community, what does the priest do? He leads us straight to the high priest, who's the only one who can forgive sins. How beautiful and how powerful, right, that the Lord brings us back into communion in this way. Just like Naaman, it's a foreigner who comes back and offers his thanksgiving, his praise to God. Right? There's a couple of lines in the gospel that I think speak deeply to me, and I hope to you as well. Right? That it's from a long ways off. That our sin separates us from other people. It's what keeps us a long way off from Jesus. Not just from each other, but it keeps us a long way off from Jesus, so that they have to call out to him. And when we call out to Jesus, we have to do it with the cry of the heart. Right? It's a medieval writer by the name of Bruno who says, the cry of the heart is louder than that vocal outcry to Jesus. That if we cry out with our hearts to him, even from as far away as we might have been kept by our sins, that he can hear us. Right? And that he will invite us to come to him, to show ourselves to him, that we can be seen and be known and be loved by him. He's the one who can restore us and make us whole. He's the one who can bring us back to the altar where we can offer our sacrifice of thanksgiving. If you haven't been to confession in a while, I would encourage you. It seems like kind of a scary thing. It might feel like you got to make a pilgrimage to Israel and do this great thing, but it's really simple what he asks of us. You might think that there's no way back for you. Well, there is. There is. Sometimes the things that he wants to heal us with are even simpler than going to confession. It's never a bad place to start. Sometimes it's something as simple as, I've been working on this thing in me and trying to fix me for so long, and I haven't really gotten as much progress as I'd like. Maybe I ought to talk to somebody about that. Right? Maybe there's help to be had for that. Right? Maybe it's an addiction and there's a program. Maybe it's something relational and you need a counselor. Maybe it's something in your marriage that needs therapy. Whatever it is, you would probably be willing if I said, I know the thing that'll get you over that hump, that'll get you over that obstacle that's been holding you back far away from Jesus, that sin that's been an obstacle for you. If you go to, Jerusalem, and you stay there for a week, and you go to a Mass at the Holy Sepulchre every day, then it'll be gone. If you had the means to do that, I'll bet that many of you would be really excited about all right, I'm going to go do that. But what if I said you and your wife need to go to a counselor that's on Hiawassee, right? It's not that far, and get some help, and maybe things will start to get better, right? Maybe the two of you can't fix it. Maybe as hard as you're trying, you don't have the tools for that. Pay attention in your prayer to the ways that the Lord moves. Sometimes it's just the smallest of things that he asks bring about the biggest results. We stand together now to profess our faith. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth.